Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're embarking on a forensic examination of just this vast digital footprint. We're diving deep into a trove of evidence that prosecutors are meticulously laying out in, well, one of the most talked about trials right now. The federal sex trafficking and racketeering case against Sean Diddy Combs. Imagine piecing together a story not just from headlines, but from, hundreds of thousands of dollars in expenses, really intricate travel arrangements, and private messages that offer this startling, unvarnished glimpse into a highly organized, alleged operation. It's like peeling back layers of digital communication to understand what was really happening behind the scenes, far from the public eye. Our mission in this deep dive is to give you a shortcut, basically, to understanding how prosecutors are attempting to paint a darker picture of Diddy's alleged inner circle and operation. We're going to try and reveal the mechanics behind the accusations, from alleged escort logistics to purported drug use and even potential witness tampering. This isn't just about sensational news. It's about the meticulous assembly of a complex legal case from what might seem like mundane digital breadcrumbs. It demonstrates how every text, every single receipt, and every travel record can become a critical piece of a much larger puzzle. So let's start with the courtroom itself. Imagine walking into that hushed tension of a federal courtroom. It's day 24 of a trial everyone is watching. You brace for explosive testimony, but instead, the first jolt comes not from evidence, but from the very core of the judicial process, the abrupt dismissal of juror number 6.
Right. And it wasn't entirely out of the blue, apparently. The judge had been subtly signaling this, like distant thunder, hinting at deep concerns about the impartiality of the very individuals tasked with delivering justice.
So it wasn't a snap decision then?
No, it seems it was a deliberation that had been brewing since the previous Friday, indicating a prior, serious consideration of the issue. And the crucial insight here isn't just that a juror was dismissed, it's the stark reminder that in these high-stakes trials, the integrity of the jury and a juror's absolute candor is seen as completely paramount.
Candor meaning honesty, right?
Exactly. Complete honesty during selection and throughout. And even minor perceived inconsistencies, like where you actually live, can be viewed as this existential threat to the court's legitimacy. It forces swift, decisive action to protect the process, even amidst, heated accusations of bias. Well, the defense raised that. But it really highlights the tightrope walk judges must perform to maintain public trust in the judicial system. They're balancing the rights of the accused with the fundamental need for an impartial jury.
And the defense certainly made their objections known, and loudly so. Diddy's defense team delivered what was described as an impassioned speech and raised sharp objections against the dismissal, arguing strenuously against the judge's decision. They even went as far as to accuse the prosecution of misconduct and claim that the dismissal was based off race, especially given that the juror, who was black, would be replaced by a white alternate.
A very serious accusation.
It was a truly heated exchange, a dramatic moment where the legal battle shifted from the evidence to the very composition of the jury itself. But the judge stood firm. His rationale for the dismissal centered on inconsistencies regarding the juror's residency.
Right, where they actually live.
Exactly. The juror was officially registered in Bronx County, got their summons from there, implying they lived within that jurisdiction. However, during the trial, the juror had reportedly made these casual, seemingly innocuous statements that raised significant red flags for court staff. Remarks like, oh, the traffic from New Jersey is crazy, or, oh, I just had to travel all the way down from New Jersey.
So directly contradicting their stated residency.
Precisely. These seemingly minor comments signaled to the court that the juror might not be residing where they claimed, which directly impacts the legitimacy of their summons and their eligibility to serve.
And the judge's concerns went deeper than just a geographic discrepancy. He articulated serious concerns about the juror's candor, not only during voir dire.
That's the jury selection part.
Right, that crucial process where potential jurors are questioned under oath, but also during subsequent discussions held in the judge's robing room.
The robing room, that's like the judge's private office.
Essentially, yes. It's the judge's private chambers, a secure space where sensitive discussions, particularly those involving a juror's eligibility or conduct, can happen away from the public eye, even away from the lawyers sometimes, ensuring complete privacy. The court meticulously reviewed transcripts from both the robing room discussions and the initial jury selection, finding what the judge described as clear inconsistencies. The judge explicitly stated his belief that the juror might have skewed his answers in order to just stay on the jury.
Wow. So he thought the juror wasn't being truthful just to stay on this high-profile case.
That was the judge's finding, yes. He was unequivocal in his assessment, declaring that this situation was threatening the integrity of the jury process and that, quote, there is nothing that the juror could say that would put the genie back in the bottle.
Meaning the trust was gone.
Completely. In other words, the perceived deception was so profound that no explanation could restore the court's confidence in their impartiality. And crucially, the court also found no evidence to support the defense's heated claims of prosecutorial misconduct or racial bias in the dismissal.
So with the judge's strong statement, the decision was made. Juror number 6 was dismissed. It removed a significant point of contention, but also added, another layer of drama to an already high-profile trial.
And then what happened?
Immediately, an alternate juror who had the benefit of being present for every single day of testimony was seated. This wasn't an individual coming in cold. They had heard all the evidence presented so far, ensuring continuity in the jury's understanding of the case.
Which is exactly why you have alternates.
But this isn't the only jury-related issue they've had to contend with. The court also faced the unsettling mention of another juror who received a text message from an unknown sender asking if they were the juror going to be dismissed.
Oh, boy. That's not good.
No. While no immediate action was taken regarding the second juror, this incident, combined with the dismissal of Juror 6, certainly brings up a very real and persistent challenge in modern high-profile trials.
Which is?
The dilemma of the unsequestered jury in an age of constant digital connectivity.
That raises such a critical question. In a world saturated with information, how does a court effectively shield jurors from outside influences without isolating them entirely? The inherent difficulty of maintaining jury impartiality when they're not sequestered in the digital age is immense.
Sequestered meaning locked away, basically.
Yes, traditionally, in really high-profile cases, juries might be sequestered, housed in a hotel, cut off from all media and external contact to preserve the purity of their deliberations. But that's incredibly rare now. Cost, practical challenges.
So what do they do instead?
Instead, judges repeatedly instruct jurors with these stern warnings. Don't discuss the case with anyone, don't follow news reports, don't engage on social media related to the trial, and certainly don't conduct your own independent research.
But that's asking a lot in today's world.
It is. The reality of an unsequestered jury means they can be exposed to a constant barrage of outside information, whether it's a headline on a friend's phone, a social media post scrolling by, or even a casual comment overheard in a coffee shop. It's a fundamental challenge to the very idea of a jury relying solely on evidence presented in court.
That's precisely the point. We're hearing about the judge telling them to literally throw your phone away and turn off your notifications regarding the case. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How can we truly ensure a jury remains untouched by the digital noise surrounding a case of this magnitude when they're not locked away?
It's almost impossible to guarantee.
The implications for the case are significant, as it's incredibly hard to guarantee that jurors aren't absorbing media coverage or outside opinions, which could theoretically, even subconsciously, impact their deliberations down the line.
Yeah, it's a constant tightrope walk for the court, striving for impartiality in an age where information is always just a tap or a swipe away.
Makes the concept of a pure jury deliberation harder than ever to achieve.
Now, connecting this to the evidence itself, the use of summary witnesses is not just helpful. It's become a strategic imperative in modern trials, especially when dealing with such a massive volume of digital evidence.
Why is that? Just too much stuff.
Exactly. Imagine a jury being presented with tens of thousands of text messages, emails, financial records. It's an impossible task to absorb, let alone make sense of, without some kind of guide. In this era of digital overload, it's not enough to simply present a mountain of data. The prosecution needs guides, these summary witnesses, to synthesize and present that data in a digestible, compelling narrative for the jury.
So they sort of tell the story of the data.
Precisely. This directly addresses the information overload challenge that can overwhelm anyone, including jurors, ensuring that the critical threads of evidence aren't lost in the digital deluge.
That's why the role of summary witnesses in this particular trial is absolutely crucial, almost like forensic data storytellers. In cases with just voluminous amounts of material, particularly digital evidence from multiple sources, these witnesses become the jury's navigators through the digital landscape. They don't just read evidence, they condense, they do an overview, and often present complex information through easily digestible charts and timelines. This helps the jury make sense of intricate details involving so many different players and all these underlying allegations in a racketeering case.
They're basically connecting the dots.
Exactly. Painting a cohesive picture, connecting fragments of communication and transactions into a coherent story for the jury. The first summary witness we heard from was paralegal Anna Sanker. Her core purpose was to review these summary charts for accuracy, cross-referencing and examining text messages, documents, audio messages, and audio files that had been extracted from various devices.
And where did most of this evidence come from?
What's particularly striking is that the vast majority of the evidence she presented came from the devices of Christina Kararam, Diddy's alleged head assistant.
Okay, so a key figure.
Absolutely. And the messages spanned an enormous time frame, from March 18th of 2016 all the way to February 26th of 2024.
Wow, that's recent. That covers the period of the raids, too.
It does. It covers years both before and after the alleged activities in question, and even extended into the very period of the highly publicized federal raids on Diddy's properties earlier this year.
That suggests a long-running continuous operation, doesn't it, if the allegations are true?
That's certainly the picture the prosecution is trying to paint, yeah. Deeply integrated into his alleged inner circle.
And the detail within these communications, particularly those concerning alleged hotel logistics and escort arrangements, is quite revealing. For example, the prosecution highlighted a specific message from Assistant Ryan Lopez to Kararam on December 29, 2019.
What did it say?
It read, "Lol, think I saw one of the cowboys. You can spot them in the lobby like an escort."
Cowboys.
That was the alleged term. This message, presented by the prosecution, allegedly sets a tone, implying a specific nature for some hotel nights and a certain familiarity among the staff with these arrangements. It's a casual remark that, in the context of the prosecution's allegations, takes on a far more sinister implication, suggests an understanding of illicit activities.
And the meticulous preparations described in the text are really striking, too, laying bare the alleged operational side. We saw alleged coordination through text messages, like Kararam telling another assistant, Dave Shirley, on March 18, 2016, to head to the Four Seasons to set up a room.
Okay.
To bring water, Gatorade, chicken noodle soup, too.
Huh. Very specific list.
It is, isn't it? Seemingly mundane items, but juxtaposed against the backdrop of the allegations, these details paint a picture of deliberate planning. The messages also indicate logistical challenges and the concerted efforts to overcome them.
Like what kind of challenges?
For instance, Melissa Fiola messaging about an adjoining room not available hotel now sold out, or Kararam saying they're giving him a hard time, something, I got it added, regarding room access.
So, problem solving on the fly.
It suggests a dedicated, almost corporate-level effort to ensure these alleged arrangements were made, no matter the obstacle.
Absolutely. The picture painted by these texts suggests a high degree of organization, extending beyond just room setup. Another text highlighted a Wild King night on June 16, 2016.
Wild King night?
Yes. And Dave Shirley's telling response was, "Shit need to re-up on baby oil," followed by Kararam's instruction to grab the cash, or he wrote like a $sign and package from you.
Baby oil and cash.
Okay. These details, when pieced together, speak to a very specific set of circumstances and preparations that go way beyond standard hotel stays. What's more, the text suggests Diddy's direct alleged involvement and oversight, with messages like, "Is room ready now?" sent directly to Kararam on November 14, 2021, and the specific mention of Paul coming up, who is presumed to be the entertainer Jane had previously testified about in court.
Jane being one of the alleged victims.
Correct. These communications serve as the digital breadcrumbs of a carefully managed system, allegedly orchestrated by Diddy and executed by his staff.
So what's the crucial implication here? It's about connecting these dots to the racketeering charges, right? Which are the backbone of this federal indictment.
Exactly. These communications are absolutely pivotal because they allegedly demonstrate that the inner circle, Diddy's assistant security staff, was in the know and actively participated in the preparation and logistics for these alleged activities. This is imperative for a racketeering case where you need to prove that the inner circle was a part of it, a racketeering conspiracy.
So the prosecution is arguing this wasn't just Diddy acting alone.
Correct. They're arguing it was an orchestrated enterprise where he needed other people and allegedly used his businesses, his assistants, his staff to facilitate these alleged crimes, these criminal events, and cover them up.
It's not just that the inner circle was in the know, then.
It's more than that. It's how meticulously the prosecution is demonstrating that Diddy's entire alleged enterprise, from the highest levels of his business down to the most mundane logistical details handled by his staff, was allegedly weaponized for criminal ends.
Weaponized?
Yes. This isn't just about individual acts. It's a strategic dismantling of a sophisticated operation, proving that the alleged conspiracy was woven into the very fabric of his professional life. It makes everyone from assistants to security guards potential conduits for alleged criminal activity. This broadens the net of accountability significantly, and that alleged orchestration, according to the prosecution, extends directly to messages related to alleged victims, specifically Cassie Ventura and Jane.
Okay, let's talk about those. What did they show regarding Cassie?
For Cassie, on May 5, 2017, texts were shown where Cassie allegedly wrote to Kororum, WTF, and I don't have my stuff, I don't even have money, expressing clear distress. Kororum's alleged response, he went right up after you left and haven't seen him since, suggests a direct connection to Diddy's actions.
And there was more.
Yes, even more disturbing. On April 20th, 2018, the same year they publicly broke up, Cassie allegedly texted Kororum, "Hey, I'm sorry about last night. I can't do the violent, scary kick me out of my home anymore. I got carry and bounce."
Wow. Those are powerful messages.
They are, and they're being presented as evidence of alleged distress, a pattern of coercive behavior, and the use of his staff to manage the fallout from these alleged incidents.
And what about Jane? What messages were shown related to her?
For Jane, we saw messages from May 16, 2023, where Kororum texted Diddy, "FYI, Robin said she paid Jane's rent last week."
And the prosecution argues this shows.
They suggest it points to a financial tether or a degree of alleged control implying dependency. Then, on November 2nd, 2023, Jane allegedly texted Kororum, "I'm not doing any more hard partying. We recently got into a pretty big fight, and I'm putting my foot down, no more hotel nights."
So setting a boundary.
Explicitly, which the prosecution argues shows Jane's resistance to certain activities. But here's where the prosecution's narrative takes an even darker turn. An audio recording from November 19th, 2023. This is just after Cassie's high-profile lawsuit was filed. Allegedly captures Diddy telling Jane something like, "I'm sorry you feel this way. You know, I can't talk on the phones. Let me know how I can make you feel better. It was some kinky stuff I thought we both enjoyed."
And Jane testified this call happened right when she was feeling affected by Cassie's lawsuit.
Exactly. According to Jane's testimony, it was precisely when she felt kind of compelled by Cassie's lawsuit, as she felt it mirrored her own alleged experiences, and she'd come forward to federal agents.
And Diddy allegedly followed up.
Yes, calling Jane and saying, "I really need your friendship right now. Call me back just to make sure you're breathing."
That sounds like pressure.
Jane emotionally responded, "I'm so effed up." The sequence is designed to show alleged manipulation and pressure.
And then, perhaps most disturbingly, the threat.
Yes. Jane allegedly texted Kororum directly, saying, "He just threatened me about my sex tapes on his phone. He said he would expose me and send them to my baby daddy."
That's chilling.
And Jane also claimed in her testimony that she was heavily on drugs while these recordings were being recorded on, which would bolster a coercion argument if true.
So the importance of all these messages for the prosecution.
It's clear. They directly connect to the sex trafficking charges and transportation to engage in prostitution charges for Cassie and Jane. They illustrate alleged coercion, where Jane was supposedly worried about those tapes being released unless she does what he wants.
It's all designed to show a pattern of control and exploitation.
And beyond the sex trafficking allegations, the digital evidence also delved into alleged drug operations, which are critical for the overarching racketeering case.
Right, racketeering needs underlying crimes.
Precisely. On July 23, 2022, an audio message from Diddy was played for the jury in which he allegedly said, "I need $10,000. Korum's subsequent response in text was followed by Guido outside.
And who is Guido?
Jane's prior testimony had identified Guido as someone they would use to obtain drugs.
Okay.
Diddy's alleged instruction to Coring was then displayed. "Can you let Guido in and take care of what needs to be taken care of?" To which Korum replied, "Yeah, it's been handled." Indeed. The inclusion of alleged drug transactions is a classic and powerful move in racketeering cases.
How so?
Under the ARCO Act, prosecutors aren't just charging individual crimes, they're aiming to prove the existence of an ongoing criminal enterprise built on a pattern of illicit activity. Drug trafficking, with its inherent organization and financial component, serves as a textbook predicate or foundational crime.
So showing drugs and alleged trafficking strengthens the main ARCO charge.
Massively. By establishing these two distinct types of alleged criminal activity, sex trafficking and drug dealing, the prosecution builds a far more robust REO case. It demonstrates a diversified criminal operation that implicates the entire alleged inner circle beyond any single incident, proving a pattern of alleged illicit acts committed by the enterprise.
And there were other texts about drugs, too.
Yes, other texts were shown regarding flour.
Marijuana.
Right, a common street term for marijuana and Molly pills, with Diddy allegedly signing off on the amount of money that is spent for these drug purchases. This demonstrates his purported oversight of these transactions.
So for the prosecution, this is a critical piece of the puzzle because
drug trafficking offenses are some of the underlying crimes for racketeering. To prove racketeering, they need at least 2 underlying predicate crimes from a list of various illicit activities that indicate an ongoing criminal enterprise. Alleged drug transactions fit that bill perfectly, strengthening their overall case against the entire alleged enterprise by showcasing a diversified portfolio of alleged illegal activities. This meticulous digging into digital records also extended to allegations of witness tampering.
Okay, who did this involve?
Specifically involving D-Rock, Diddy's former security guard, whose real name is Damon Butler, and Mia, an alleged victim who had previously claimed sexual assault by Diddy.
And the timing here was key.
Very key. These messages are particularly significant because they surfaced just a couple days after Cassie's lawsuit was filed, and then just 1 day after it was settled.
Wow, that timing seems suspicious.
It suggests a timely, strategic effort to contact key individuals who might have information relevant to the allegations. The prosecution is attempting to show that this wasn't mere coincidence, but a coordinated attempt to influence potential witnesses or testimony.
So what did the messages actually show? How did this allegedly happen?
The messages presented paint a picture of alleged orchestration. They show D-Rock allegedly reaching out to Diddy, then to Mia, and ultimately sharing Mia's number with Diddy.
Okay.
Texts from D-Rock to Diddy read, "I need to hear your voice, bro, love you, and I'm here for you. I feel I need to see you and chill with you for a couple of days," suggesting loyalty and an offer of support.
Then D-Rock contacted Mia.
Yes, D-Rock texted Mia directly. Your boy said to call him with your boy, clearly meaning Diddy.
And how did Mia react?
Mia's responses were telling, indicating apprehension, replies like, "Sorry, I was scuba diving," and her later testimony about being nervous as far as why Drock was reaching out to her as much and why Diddy wanted to speak to her around this time frame.
She even threw her phone away.
She claims she kind of threw her phone away when Diddy called multiple times, experiencing what she described as anxiety as she had had whenever Diddy was her boss. This suggests a history of unease that resurfaced with these calls. Diddy's alleged intent, according to the prosecution, becomes clearer with his text to Mia. "Hey, I don't want to be blowing up your phone. Let me know when you get 10 minutes to talk. Just need my memory jogged on some things."
Yeah, my memory jogged. Sounds a bit leading.
It could be interpreted that way. This was followed by Diddy texting D-Rock. "I sent that message to Mia because I've been trying to reach her." So the prosecution's argument is, their argument here is that this evidence goes to the idea of witness tampering and goes to the idea of obstruction. They're suggesting an alleged attempt to get Mia on the same page about everything after Cassie's allegations surfaced, especially given Mia's own alleged claims against Diddy.
A concerted effort to control the narrative or influence testimony at a crucial time.
That's the prosecution's case on that point, yes.
Now, this is a pivotal point, isn't it? Because the defense didn't just sit there. They had to reframe this entire narrative around the digital evidence during cross-examination.
Absolutely.
During the cross-examination of Anna Sanker, led by Diddy's attorney Tenny Garagos, the defense meticulously tried to poke holes in the prosecution's narrative and introduce alternative explanations for the messages.
Standard defense strategy, but crucial here.
They're essentially saying, wait, you're only seeing a sliver of the full picture. It forces you to think about how much context is truly needed to understand someone's actions and intentions, especially when dealing with years of private communications that can be selectively presented.
It's a classic battle over context and interpretation.
Yeah.
For instance, regarding the alleged witness tampering involving D-Rock and Mia.
Yeah, how did they counter that?
The defense attempted to reframe D-Rock's intent entirely. They highlighted a message where D-Rock told Mia, "If you need anything, let me know," and Mia's prior statement that she was out of Skrilo money.
Skrilo money, like broke.
Exactly, a colloquial phrase indicating a significant financial struggle or lack of funds. The defense argued that D-Rock was genuinely helping Mia with financial issues, as a big brother trying to help out a little sister type of thing.
So portraying his outreach as altruistic, not coercive.
Precisely. They emphasized D-Rock's new restaurant business and his close, long-standing friendship with Mia to support this alternative, more innocent interpretation of his outreach, suggesting it was merely an act of kindness between friends, not an attempt at tampering.
And the defense also took aim at the overall scope of the evidence presented by the prosecution, right? Implying it was deliberately narrow.
Yes, they hit that hard. They highlighted that the summary charts were based on select messages spanning only about 33 pages long from an 8-year period. They argued vehemently that they were not showing the full context of every single message in Christina Carorum's vast digital history.
And Karam worked for him longer than that.
Much longer. They pointed out that Carorum had worked for Diddy many years prior to 2016, implying that the context of her long-term employment and the nature of her duties for Diddy across a much longer period was missing from the narrow selection of texts presented.
Trying to suggest the prosecution cherry-picked.
That was the clear implication. The defense also noted that there was only one mention of an escort, Clayton Howard, or Dave, in the summary chart, attempting to suggest a lack of widespread evidence for escort arrangements within the presented data rather than the prosecution's implied pattern. And to further their point about missing context and to suggest alternative non-criminal narratives, the defense introduced messages not shown by the government during direct examination.
Like what? Give me an example.
For example, they brought up a message from Annette Moore explaining a TMZ story about Cassie and Diddy's fight, stating it was spinning the story about a fight over a cell phone because a police report was attached.
Okay, so trying to show things weren't always as reported.
Yeah, exactly. Presented to suggest that public narratives about Diddy and Cassie's relationship were not always as they appeared, and that there might be legitimate, non-criminal explanations for their altercations. They also sought to suggest willing participation regarding Jane.
How did they do that?
Using messages from Jane to Carorum were like, sorry for the late text, I having a bad come down and just wanted to check on Puff.
Okay.
And highlighting Jane's role in helping set up these particular room decor as far as these hotel nights with balloons and roses. The defense argued this implied a romantic gesture and that Jane was a willing participant in these activities, directly countering the prosecution's narrative of coercion and forced labor.
That's a crucial strategy. If they can show willingness, the foundation of the trafficking charge weakens significantly.
Absolutely critical for the defense.
And the defense didn't shy away from challenging the alleged threats about sex tapes either.
No, they addressed that head-on. By bringing up instances where Diddy allegedly expressed a desire to keep videos from getting out, for instance, his concern about private videos being leaked to the public, the defense aimed to cast doubt on whether Diddy, well, as the defense lawyer put it, was he really going to release these videos as a form of a threat? Really, was it a real threat?
So questioning the credibility of the threat itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're essentially trying to argue that the prosecution is cherry-picking communications to create a narrative that isn't fully supported by the broader context of Diddy's and his inner circle's interactions.
It's a classic defense strategy. If you can't discredit the evidence entirely, you try to recontextualize it, spin it to show a different, less incriminating intention.
Right. And it forces you, the listener, and more importantly, the jury, to weigh how much context is truly needed to interpret actions and intentions from fragments of communication. Now, this raises an important question for the jury. How do they process such explicit and, frankly, overwhelming information, connecting financial data with intimate communications and visual evidence?
It must be incredibly difficult.
It is. What we're seeing here is the prosecution's deliberate effort to connect the seemingly disparate dots from precise travel receipts to suggestive text messages, right down to the most impactful visual evidence. It's about building a narrative that is not just circumstantial, but demonstrably interlinked.
Trying to leave little room for alternative interpretations.
If the jury accepts the evidence as presented, yes. It's about demonstrating that this alleged enterprise was not only organized, but also financially fueled and visually documented.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the second summary witness, Special Agent Delissa Pinland from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York.
Her background is in search warrants, data analysis.
Exactly. A background that makes her particularly suited to tracking digital and financial trails. For this trial, her role was similar to Sanker's, reviewing charts for accuracy, but critically, she also reviewed video files. Her testimony was incredibly chart-heavy, providing a clear timeline of flights and hotel stays.
So more connecting the dots.
Meticulously. These charts linked specific locations, reservation details, and the names of individuals involved: Diddy, Cassie, and various alleged escorts or entertainers like Jules Theodore, Julian Sapp, L.A. Strip, Oracle, The Punisher, and Clayton Howard. Dave.
Yeah. Naming names.
Yes, it's a painstaking reconstruction of movement.
Her presentation included very specific examples, leaving little to the imagination regarding the alleged coordination.
Such as?
For instance, in August 2009, she presented records for a stay at the high-end London hotel in NYC, directly accompanied by flight records for Julian Sapp from LA to NYC,
Okay.
with a specific return flight to Las Vegas, not back to LA.
Interesting detail.
Then just a few months later, in December 2009, there were records for another London hotel stay, with flights for Jules Theodore from LAX to JFK and back, and for Cassie from Miami to LaGuardia.
And they could link these flights directly to Diddy's operation.
Crucially, these travel arrangements were further corroborated by emails, such as one directly between Diddy and his associate Tony Bias for flight itineraries, specifically for Jules Theodore. So, solidifying the claim of coordinated travel directly managed within Diddy's inner circle, this level of detail isn't about isolated incidents, it's about establishing a pattern.
And then came the American Express statements.
The money trail.
Which truly painted a picture of the alleged scale and financial underpinning of this operation. The prosecution presented evidence of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars spent, which they argued directly funded these alleged activities.
Any specific examples jump out?
Specific charges highlighted included flights for Cassie totaling $2,621.21 and Jules Theodore for $875.20, along with substantial London hotel bookings for $1,977.50. But the numbers grew even more staggering. A sum of $369,269 was shown as spent in just 1 month, December 2009, on Sean Combs' American Express account.
Nearly $370,000 in 1 month. Wow.
This meticulous data is absolutely crucial for proving transportation to engage in prostitution and the interstate travel component for sex trafficking.
Right. You need to show they crossed state lines for the federal charge.
Exactly. The prosecution is clearly using the travel receipts, the cash, the credit card bills to sell this concept to the jury that these were organized, elaborate, and financially supported activities essential for proving an alleged criminal enterprise.
It's a powerful financial narrative of alleged illicit conduct. And beyond the financials, Special Agent Pinland's testimony also delved into more explicit text messages and video files, specifically from 2013.
So, providing visual and textual corroboration of the alleged activities.
Correct. The jury was shown messages from January 2013 between Diddy and Cassie, with Diddy allegedly asking, "Are you horny?" and "Want to celebrate Xmas or have a freak off tonight or Friday?" and coordinating with Jules.
Freak off.
That was the term used in the texts. Another text showed Cassie communicating with Garen, her booker for Cowboys for Angels,
Which was the alleged escort service.
described as the alleged service that they used in order to get the escorts or entertainers discussing specific individuals. Been in LA tonight. This is the textual evidence of coordination.
But the most impactful element presented was undoubtedly the videos.
Without a doubt. The sexually explicit or freak-off videos featuring Cassie, an alleged escort, and Diddy.
And the jury saw these.
Yes. While the public gallery was strictly prevented from seeing them, the jury was provided with individual headphones to wear and watch these videos in the courtroom, allow them to focus entirely on the visual evidence without distraction.
And how did the jury react? That must have been intense.
What's noteworthy, according to reporters observing the proceedings, is the jury's composure. This jury is described as very professional. They do not bat an eye, they don't fluster, and they maintain absolute focus on the screens, never looking away from the material.
That suggests the evidence is being received without visible emotional bias from the jurors.
Indicates a focused, professional assessment of the material, no matter how explicit.
Indeed. The prosecution's strategy here is expertly tying it all together, isn't it? Creating a comprehensive and difficult-to-dispute narrative.
Seems to be. They excellently corresponded these videos with the flights, with the escorts coming in.
Why is that specific connection important?
To specifically counter the defense's anticipated argument that there's no direct proof flights actually connected with freak-offs or escorts.
Preempting the defense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By presenting the communications, the travel records, the financial transactions, and the visual confirmation, they're building an interlocking case designed to leave little room for doubt.
This is about demonstrably linking all the various pieces of evidence for the various charges.
Painting a comprehensive, if disturbing, picture for the jury. They're making it clear that this isn't just a collection of circumstantial evidence, but a carefully constructed mosaic of alleged activity.
So what does this all mean for the days to come? We've seen the prosecution meticulously lay out their case piece by digital piece, almost like an archaeological dig through digital debris.
Digital dig, yeah.
They've built what they hope is an undeniable narrative using texts, flights, and financials, but now it's the defense's turn to present their side of the story.
The pendulum swings.
They're going to try to unravel some of these connections and perhaps even introduce new interpretations of the very same evidence we've just discussed. It's like a high-stakes chess match, and the next moves are absolutely critical.
As the prosecution wraps up, all eyes are on Brendan Paul.
Right, he's expected to testify soon.
He is widely anticipated to be one of their final witnesses, following Delissa Pinland. His name has come up frequently in prior discussions regarding alleged drug and financial transactions, and his close proximity to Diddy, even being arrested alongside him in Miami, suggests he possesses first-hand knowledge that could be profoundly impactful.
So the speculation is whether he'll be a bombshell witness.
Exactly. Will his testimony truly solidify the prosecution's case before they rest? The potential is there. His unique vantage point could provide the final devastating piece of evidence for the prosecution. Or perhaps, if the defense can chip away at his credibility, a moment of weakness for the government.
We await his potential impact with bated breath. And as soon as the prosecution rests, a pivot point in any trial, the defense will immediately begin to present their case, attempting to counter the narrative built by the government.
And we know who some of their first witnesses might be.
We've had a glimpse into their initial witnesses. First up is Vosa Dunlap, who worked for Bad Boy Entertainment, possibly in HR.
HR, interesting angle.
Suggests a focus on the legitimate functions of Diddy's enterprise. Then there's another unnamed summary-type witness who, it's believed, will aim to directly counter the government's exhibits by discussing what wasn't talked about in the prosecution's selected messages, highlighting omissions or greater context.
The counter-narrative witness.
Exactly. Finally, a person named Stephen is also on their initial witness list, though their specific role remains to be seen.
The defense's strategy, particularly with Vosa Dunlap from HR, appears aimed at directly challenging the racketeering and forced labor allegations by focusing on the purported legitimate structure of Diddy's businesses.
How would HR testimony do that?
They might call Dunlap to address the job descriptions of Sean Combs' assistants and bodyguards, emphasizing their professional duties, and the legitimate operational framework of Bad Boy Entertainment. The defense will likely argue that these individuals weren't hired to commit crimes and cover them up, and that there wasn't an overt agreement that they were going to do that.
Trying to separate the business from the alleged crimes.
Precisely. This directly attempts to dismantle the prosecution's racketeering charge by asserting that the staff's roles were legitimate and not criminal in nature, thereby challenging the very existence of a criminal enterprise, as defined by the IKO Act.
It's about demonstrating that the apparent organization was for business, not for crime. And the unnamed defense summary witness will clearly play a crucial role in controlling the narrative, too.
A direct counter to the prosecution's summary witnesses.
Right. While the prosecution used their summary witnesses to painstakingly build a story from digital fragments, the defense's summary witness will aim to highlight the full context of the messages, perhaps showing additional communications that paint a different picture or offer alternative interpretations of the evidence the prosecution presented.
They might present their own charts, emphasizing conversations about legitimate business dealings or personal relationships that contradict the prosecution's alleged criminal narrative.
It's a strategic move to complicate the seemingly straightforward narrative the prosecution has built.
Create doubt and present a different angle for the jury to consider as they move toward deliberations, forcing them to consider what was not shown. This is a critical pivot in the trial, a true clash of interpretations over the same raw data. The defense will aim to introduce elements that cast doubt on the prosecution's interpretation of events, whether by showing that individuals were willing participants, as they attempted with Jane, or by demonstrating alternative, non-criminal reasons for the communications of financial transactions.
Trying to reframe the entire narrative.
Exactly. Challenging the intent and overarching conspiracy alleged by the prosecution. This will likely involve a deep dive into the defense's own selection of digital evidence, or, more likely, pointing out the absence of certain evidence from the prosecution's presentation to argue for a broader, more nuanced interpretation.
Dissecting the carefully constructed narrative and presenting their own.
Emphasizing what they believe the prosecution has omitted or misinterpreted, shifting the jury's focus from what was shown to what wasn't.
It's a fascinating dynamic, isn't it? We've seen the prosecution build its case with digital precision, showing alleged patterns of behavior through texts, finances, and travel, painting a dark, organized picture.
Hmm.
Now, the defense will use their opportunity to argue that these very same digital breadcrumbs, when viewed in their full, unfiltered context, tell a very different story. One of legitimate business dealings, personal relationships, or perhaps misunderstandings, rather than a criminal enterprise.
Two different lenses on the same data.
This shift in focus means the jury will be presented with two very different lenses through which to view the same underlying digital data. It will be up to them to weigh the arguments and decide which narrative the evidence most convincingly supports.
A modern battle fought on the digital battlefield.
This deep dive truly highlights the sheer volume and meticulous nature of the digital evidence presented in a high-stakes trial like this. It's a testament to how a forensic examination of texts, travel records, and financial statements can allegedly reveal the inner workings of an organization, shedding light on operations that were previously hidden from public view.
Yeah, it's quite something.
We've taken you through the alleged escort logistics, the purported drug transactions, and the shocking allegations of witness tampering, all meticulously pieced together from what were once private, everyday digital exchanges.
We connect this to the bigger picture. This deep dive shows us that in the age of pervasive digital communication, the true battleground in legal cases often lies within these vast oceans of data. Every text, every flight record, every financial transaction, once mundane, can become a critical piece of a complex mosaic, revealing patterns and alleged operations that were previously hidden.
It's kind of scary in a way.
It's a powerful reminder of how our digital lives can become the ultimate witness, laying bare the minutiae of our daily choices for future scrutiny.
As you reflect on the deliberate presentation of these digital breadcrumbs from both prosecution and defense, consider how much of our own lives, captured in messages and transactions, could one day be pieced together to tell a story, whether of intent, complicity, or perhaps something entirely different. It makes you think, doesn't it, about the lasting digital echoes we all leave behind?